lads and lasses, boys and girls, children of all ages, from the dreamers to the dregs. We are all here today for your favorite part of the week. It's called Live with Jack. Today is our 25th episode, and the very best thing, the very best part of this, the part you need so that you can really enjoy this to the fullest, so that you can truly experience the wonders of this live stream. The height of humanity, the culmination of all civilization, really, is a drink of some kind. Find yourself a vessel, a beverage vessel, and fill it with the beverage of your choosing. I have poured myself a glass of the Diablo 2 beer that I showed you guys last week. So for those of you who were here last week, nice callback. And join me now for the most important part of your day, and in fact, your week, perhaps even your life. It's called Cheers with Chaps, and do it with me now. Go. That is surprisingly good. I thought it was going to be just absolute shit. Some, like knockoff beer bullshit that they decided to market out for pimping their new, well, I guess not new IP. It's pretty old, but they're bringing it back. It's a pretty decent ale. Not bad. So what luck, what a wonderful way to start our weekly live stream. Now, today I'm going to be teaching you about the powers of persuasion. And I'm sure that you guys have... Why is my door... Bento, are you doing that? Let me just put something there so that it won't... There we go. Now hopefully it won't move. All right. Much better. So, powers of persuasion. I'm sure that you guys have heard before about persuasion, right? And it's obviously you know the word, but what does that mean in this context? Well, generally speaking, persuasion is just getting other people to either agree with you or to want the same things as you. Now, in the case of seduction, in the case of dating, that can take on a completely different meaning. And a lot of guys will talk about stupid shit like neurolinguistic programming, things like that. Basically, ways to trick people into doing the things that you want. And that's not what I'm talking about at all. What I'm talking about is finding ways to make both of your goals align so that you get what you want, but they also get what they want. That's the real trick to persuasion, is to convince somebody that your goals actually do align, and that by helping you or by doing what you want, you will also be doing what they want. And not just like a tit for tat, like a trade, but that you can do something that's mutually beneficial to both of you. One of the most powerful methods of persuading someone is something called pacing and leading. Now, this is something that I've mentioned on other live streams before, and last time that I mentioned it, I specifically said it was going to require its own lesson, because it really does. It's not a small topic. And the basic idea behind it is that in order to persuade someone, you need to be able to get on the same level with them. So wherever you are, whatever it is that you're doing over here, this is the person you want to persuade, and they are here. And we're going to talk about the different ways that they can be here in a little bit. But they're here, and you need to get to where they are, meet them at that level, and then you can lead them. Let me give you a basic example of this. So if some random stranger comes up to you on the street and says, "Hey, Jack, your shirt's fucking stupid. Makes you look fat and dumb, and I don't like it. Ow, my balls." Do you care? No. Why? Because who the fuck is this person, right? They're not on the same level with me. They're not even somebody who I know. Why do I care about their opinion? I don't. But if your best friend says, "Hey, Jack, listen, that shirt is really not working for you." Okay, now you're actually going to listen a bit more. Why? Because you already know that you're on the same level with this person, at the very least socially, and it's very possible, depending on what kind of friend this is and what kind of things you engage in together, that your goals align, that the different things that you like to do align. So they are already pacing you, and now they can lead you by telling you that your shirt is not good, and you're willing to follow because you're already on the same level with them. This can also work in a lot of other different circumstances. One of the mistakes that a lot of guys make, especially whenever they're doing cold approach, day game, things like that, is that they will try to bring very high energy to a low energy girl, or they'll try to stop a girl who's, she's late for work or something. She's moving quickly. She's going, and she has no time for your bullshit. Okay, you're not on the same level with her. So there's no way for you to actually talk to her, to persuade her that even talking to you is a good idea. And so I drew a fancy little diagram. And listen, guys, I need to warn you up front. My art skills are bar none the best in the world. So these little diagrams are going to really help you to understand perfectly exactly what pacing and leading is about. Now, if you look at this fantastic, this Picasso-esque, Monet would be jealous of my skills at this version. Basically, what you see here in the no side is a dude standing here trying to call out to a girl, but she's running past him. Okay, they're not on the same level. They're doing different things. They're on different planes of action at the moment. So there's no way, which way? There's no way that he will be able to actually get her attention because they're doing different things. They're in different spaces, mentally, physically, metaphysically, probably. But over here, on the yes side of things, you see that they're both standing still, they're both talking, and they're both much happier for it because now they're on the same levels. So this is the basic idea of pacing, is that you get onto the same level with somebody else. What are the different ways, I'm sure you're wondering, to pace someone? Well, I came up with 4 basic ways that you can pace somebody whenever you're trying to talk to them. You're trying to persuade them to whatever it is that you want. The first one is energy or enthusiasm. And the easiest way to describe this one would be if you're out at a bar, you're trying to pick up girls, you're trying to meet girls, and these girls are super high energy, but you're super low energy. You're not going to be able to walk in there and drag them down to your level. It doesn't work that way. But if you walk in and you're high energy as well, then once you've already met them, once you've established that you're both on the same level, then you'll be able to slowly bring their energy levels down by doing different activities, by talking about more somber topics if you want to bring the energy level down. Same thing goes if you're a naturally high energy person and you see a girl who's low energy, you don't want to go up to her and be like, hey, what's up, girl? What are you up to today? Right? No, because you're going to get blown out immediately. You're not on the same level, so you're not matching. Instead, you come in low energy, you pace her. You start a conversation, you keep it low energy, and then you can lead her to some more high energy activities that bring her out of her shell a bit more. That is basically how you can deal with energy and enthusiasm. This is also a really great tactic if there's a girl that you're trying to chat with at the bar, but she's there with some friends. Look at her energy level, not the friends. Come into the conversation with the same energy level as her, but talking to one of her other friends who's on a different energy level. Maybe she's too high energy or too low energy, and you're chatting with her. Okay, well, all of a sudden, things aren't feeling right. They're not a match. And now you've seen someone in the group who was your initial target anyway, who better matches your energy level. And you're able to say, hey, listen, your friends are a bit much, aren't they? Yeah. What do you say? Let's go grab a gin and tonic up at the bar. Let's, maybe bring it down a little bit. Okay, great. Well, you're already at the same energy level with her. So you've been pacing her while you're talking to the other friends, even though you're getting blown out by them because you're not pacing them correctly. But you've been pacing the girl you wanted the whole time without her knowing it. Then it's easier to lead her off from the group because you've already matched her energy level to yours. Make sense? Next one, speed. Okay, this goes back to my masterpiece of art that I showed you a minute ago. This is the most physical example of pacing and the most literal example, because if you're talking to somebody who is, even if they're a little bit quieter, a little bit introverted, but they're talking very quickly, they're jumping topic to topic to topic to topic, then you need to be able to keep up. You need to be able to match their speed. Could be verbal speed, could also be physical speed. This is especially popular and effective in Japan, where they do nanpa, which basically means walking with the girl. So whenever you see a girl, she's walking somewhere quickly, and then you come up and you literally match speed with her, and you keep walking with her to talk to her. Now, in my experience, that has not worked very well in Korea. Probably some cultural differences there. But regardless, by pacing them and matching their speed, that also helps you to then lead them. So if you guys are both walking quickly together, and then you say, oh, hey, hold on just a minute. There's a little coffee shop over here. I'm going to grab something to drink real quick. Speaking of something to drink, second cheers. And then, now that you've been walking together with her, she's much more apt to actually slow down and stop with you because you've been pacing and now you're leading. Our next way of using this. I apparently cannot spell, and I just realized it. Hold on. Whoopsies. Papa Jackson, idiot. And before somebody says, well, he's just drunk. First beer of the day. Mindset. So this one is a little bit trickier. And this one is more useful for actually convincing somebody to change their mind about something or change their views on something. This can be especially useful whenever you're dealing with political conversations or with something that is maybe more personal to someone in nature. Maybe they are just naturally very, this is a really good way of dealing with things like anti-slut defense or last minute resistance as well. Things like that, where their mind is set in some specific way and you need to get them to change their mind about it. Okay, so this is why a lot of times you'll see somebody, the best examples of this are usually political arguments. Somebody is like, oh, I can't believe that anybody would vote for this guy or vote for that guy or whatever. And what you'll see is whenever somebody wants to change their mind, they'll come in by offering up some sort of a sacrificial lamb. They'll basically meet the person on a belief that they know that they already held. So you might see something like, yeah, Trump is an absolute crazy person and his Twitter is just a dumpster fire. But I have to admit, his peace accords in the Middle East seem to have held up really well. I mean, maybe not everything is terrible. Okay, so you start off by pacing them where they already are because they say, oh, Trump is a garbage president, the worst ever. Okay, and then you pace them there and then you lead them to, but not everything is terrible. Okay, and now they're opening their mind a little bit more. They're going to be much more likely to open up to an idea presented by somebody who is already agreeing with them. And the same thing is true in the seduction world, right? And so this is where a lot of guys will get tripped up on the, should I tell the truth all the time? Should I lie about things? Should I maybe falsely present what I'm there for, what it is that I'm looking for, something like that? And instead of that, so you're trying to take a girl home and she says, oh, no. I'm not that kind of girl. I don't go back on first dates. I don't do that on first dates. Okay. Now you're at a crossroads, right? You can do a couple of things. You can either say, oh, yeah, no, me either. I don't do that. Or you can say, oh, I mean, but why? It's going to be so fun. Or you pace them and you lead them, right? And so this is where it's going to be very effective, where you can say something like, hey, I feel like you're misunderstanding this situation entirely, right? Because we're out here just having fun, right? We're having a great time. We've been having some drinks. We've been playing beer pong. We've been playing Never Have I Ever. And I happen to know a place nearby where the gin is cold and the piano's hot. And we can go back there and we can have a little nightcap together. We can play some music. I have a guitar. Have you ever played a ukulele? I'm going to teach you how to play a little bit of ukulele. We're going to have a couple more drinks. We're going to have a good time. See what happens. It's going to be great. Perfect. Right next to the subway station too. So very easy to go home once we finish. Okay, so now you've started out with pacing because you start out with, we're having a good time. Here are the things that we've been doing so far tonight. Okay, great. So what are we going to do? We're going to go and we're going to keep on having fun. We're going to keep having fun. What does having fun mean? Well, here are a couple of examples, right? We're going to have some drinks. Maybe we'll play another game or two. I have some card games. I have some music. I have dogs. Do you like dogs? I have one of the guys. This is where your bait comes in. And we've talked about this before. So by pacing them, you're then able to lead them because you're getting them to agree with you and you're agreeing with what they've already thought. They have been having a good time. Now, if they haven't been having a good time so far, if the night's been shit and you have been a bad conversationalist and not been leading it well, then they're not going to be there, right? They're not going to be there in the mindset because they're not having fun. But if you can get them having fun throughout the night, then when it's time to go back to your place, you've already paced them. And then even if you get a little bit of resistance, it's easy enough to pace them based on what you've been doing so far tonight and lead them to the next step and the next step. Make sense? Next one. Social and personal issues. Okay. This one is a little bit different because this is more to do with your social dynamics and whatever your personal situations are. So if you are alone, but you're trying to approach a group of 6 girls at the bar, you're going to need to really bring something special to make up for the fact that you aren't meeting them on equal level. This is one of the reasons that a lot of times guys will want a wingman so that they can approach a 2-set together. Why? Because you're pacing them on their actual social dynamic at the time. You're meeting them 2 and 2, or you're meeting them 3 and 3, or you're meeting them 6 and 6 if it's a group that large. Generally, that's a little bit hard to actually put together well for guys because anytime you get 4 or more guys in a group, they just kind of turn into gorillas. It doesn't really work well. If you're actually going out to try to meet women, keep your group of guys to 3 maximum, really. But that's one of the reasons that guys instinctively want to meet girls in the same numbers because you're pacing them on their social dynamic. Why? Because it's going to be harder for you to get one of them to leave the group, especially if there's only 2 of them. How are you going to isolate one of them from the other? Well, you can, but it's a lot harder that way. So one of the easiest ways to persuade them that it's okay is by pacing them on the social grouping, on the dynamics there. Also, the actual social dynamics inside the group are going to make a difference. Because if you have one guy who's clearly the leader, he's the head bastard in charge, then whenever you meet the group of girls and you find the head bitch in charge, you pair them up because then you leave the others to commingle among each other while you basically take the 2 strongest players out of the equation. That is another example of pacing on social dynamics and then leading by allowing the other members of the group to then mingle with one another. Hey, Paul, we're going to be wrapping up the lesson pretty soon. Could you shoot Caesar a message and see if he's alive? Because I haven't seen him pop into the thing yet. The other one is, cheers. The other one is the personal aspect. So, personal things could be anything from, I'm new to this city. Wow, me too. Have you found any cool places to do this or to do that? Or have you found any great restaurants? Or have you had any luck with dating out here? Or something like that. Because you're pacing on the personal level of we have something in common. This is a really effective way to start up a conversation with somebody who you have no reason to talk to at all, is you find some kind of commonality between the 2 of you. And you immediately try to gravitate towards something like that, something that you would have in common. We're both the same age. We both go to the same university. We both love Italy. You see her wearing a Roma t-shirt or something like that. Okay, find something in common, and then you meet them on that personal level. And that's where you start with the pacing. then you try to find more things that you have in common, more things that you both share together. Because, again, one thing alone doesn't just do it, and they're not willing to go with whatever you say. But by finding different things that you have in common, the more you have in common, the more likely they are to value what it is that you say, to think that what you're doing, what you're saying is worthwhile, to listen to you, to go with you, to have a drink with you, because they're going to trust you more. Pacing basically builds trust with somebody else because you're both doing the same thing. And if they're doing what I'm doing, how could they be wrong, right? Because I know I'm right. I know what I'm doing is the correct thing. There are also other ways that you can use pacing and leading to actually enhance different situations. One great example of that is this live stream. First of all, you're here with me. Great, awesome, love having you guys. But second, the very first thing we do is we always open up with a drink together. Why? Because I'm trying to get you guys to pace with me. I'm trying to get you to join me and do something together. Speaking of which, but Papa Jack, doesn't that mean that you're trying to manipulate us? Yeah, kind of. But I'm manipulating you to help you enjoy this stream more, to help you pay better attention to the things that I'm saying so that you can start actually applying them to your life easier. This is all going to be much easier for you and much more enjoyable if you are joining me in the same physical realm, having a drink together, in the same mindset realm. We are here to learn, to grow together, to improve ourselves together. And then once you have been paced with me, right, we're doing this together. Then once we're paced, it's much easier for you to follow my lead and to start going down these different rabbit holes that I explore every week. It's going to make the advice seem more relevant to you. It's going to make the actions that I prescribe for you seem much more prescient and much more effective. And then, because you have basically tricked your mind into thinking what I say is more important and is better advice than normal, you're actually going to go out and act on that advice, which is usually the step that people fail at. They're great at listening to advice. They're great at understanding the advice, at letting it sit and simmer and grow in their minds. But then to actually take that step of action requires you to trust the person who's giving you the advice. Now, for those of you who have met me in person, it's fairly easy to trust me because you've seen me in action and you know that I'm good at what I'm talking about. I know what I'm doing. But for those of you who are watching this who have never actually met me in person, you've never spoken to me directly, it's kind of hard. I'm just a dude on the internet. And I don't really look like the kind of guy who can just go out and get laid at a whim. But when you pace with me and when you allow me to lead you, then your brain is going to trick itself into actually believing what I say, which will let you take the actions that you need to start improving your dating life. Once you take the actions, then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because you're like, holy shit, what Papa Jack said worked. That guy really is good at what he's doing. I really should trust him. Oh, I was right the whole time. What a genius I am for having trusted this guy and doing what he said. And it all started with a drink. So, does pacing and leading work? Yes, extremely well. I see you there having that drink with me. Very nice, very nice. Clever. It works extremely well if you can find a way to pace the person that you're with. By pacing them, they will trust you more and they will allow you to lead them better. Now, is this a tool that you can go out and use for evil? Yes, it is. Please don't do that, right? This is actually a really great tool for developing better and more meaningful relationships with the people in your life, with the new people who you meet. And it's very important that you use this for good ends. That's my disclaimer. With all that said, I think that we're about done with this week's lesson, and we're going to move on, bring the panel in, and start up with the Q&A. So let's bring them in. First off, we have welcome back from his absence last week, the kid, and once again from last week, Paul. What's up, boys? Welcome to the party.
Hello.
Paul, have you heard anything from Julius?
I suspect he might have fallen asleep at his keyboard.
Wah, wah. Okay, well, his loss, really.
Yeah, he couldn't pace.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, that's right. He didn't pace. He didn't pace with us, so I couldn't lead him. Also, I didn't see. I don't even have my phone with me. Did you throw something into the Discord yet to let the guys know that we're on? If you could just shoot in a message, that would be super helpful. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. The kid, what do we have first today?
All right, so the first question we have came from a user in the Discord. It's long, so we might want to break it up into individual questions, but I'll just read it all out to start. So it goes, it's funny I'm asking this after having such a huge volume of girls earlier this year. But after freshly coming out of this relationship, I think one of the things I'm worried about is that I won't be able to find a girl as awesome as this. I mean, I think I'm just thinking about the daunting task of grinding it out to find a girl like this again, and it feels overwhelmingly hard. I understand this is probably scarcity, but I mean, it's easy to say, think with abundance, much harder in practice. What's been your experience? And then just context, anyone listening, the user in the Discord who asked this just got off a breakup. So that's kind of context to this question.
Okay. Have you ever had a job that was fine, not great, but fine, and then you decided to just leave it and go find something else? I mean, probably lots of people have had that experience, or at the very least, you've started looking for a job while you're still working there. How many jobs did you have to sort through before you found something else that was as good or better than that job? Probably a lot. And the same is true with relationships. And in both of those cases, in both jobs and relationships, there's an idea of better the devil you know than the devil you don't, which is, I know the problems with this job, or I know the problems with this girl, and I kind of know how to deal with them, but any new one introduces a lot of unknown variables. So unless they have a lot to make up for those unknown variables, then it's hard for me to imagine them being as good or better. That's an entirely understandable mentality. But the fact is, they do exist. They are out there, both for jobs and for women. And I want to focus specifically on the women's side of things. But the idea is that, yeah, there's a lot of garbage out there, right? But you're not looking for garbage. So if you break up with a girl or if you quit a job, there's a reason, right? There's a reason. There was something wrong or some sort of misalignment on goals, on values, on personality, on their inability to pace with you, on their inability to drink with you at the beginning of a live stream, whatever reason it is that you decided to go separate ways, that still exists. Are you going to go out from a mid-level job or a mid-level girlfriend and start looking for McJobs or McGirlfriends? No, of course not, right? You're only looking for something as good or better than what you had before. So the short answer to this question is, yes, there is a lot of garbage out there, but if you have gone through the foundation documents, if you have set up your filters properly so that you're getting rid of any garbage before it even comes your way, then that's not much of a concern. Then all that you're dealing with is sorting out all these different girls who all have their different pros and cons and figuring out which one best aligns with you. Are you going to have to go through a process of trial and error? Yeah, of course. Are there going to be some girls who you thought were great at first, but then once you started meeting them and getting to know them, turns out not so much? Yeah, probably. But will you, at the end of the day, find something as good or better than her? Yes, because your standards have been set. And once your standards are set, why would you ever go backwards? You wouldn't, and you won't. So you don't need to worry about anything that's below your standards. You're not even going to engage with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Paul, what do you think, buddy?
Yeah, I was going to say, this was kind of my situation last year, right?
Yeah.
So what I would say is, like, the most important thing is to stop focusing on the girl and start focusing on yourself. because what usually happens in and around the breakup is that whoever is leading changes, which means if the guy has been leading throughout the entire relationship, once the breakup happens, especially in the way it's described here, it sounds like the power might have shifted over in her hands, which means, first of all, if that is the one girl, then that's going to work out itself or not. But the most important is to start focusing on yourself again, to find your own pace, find what you are, who you are. And what tends to happen when you start focusing on yourself, you start feeling better. It's a shitty hole in the start, right? But then you get yourself into your space and you get kind of find your own pace, and she starts to become less important. And that is when the power actually shifts back into your hands. And then, first of all, yes, you can try to go out with her again, but well, if there was something, yeah, if there was something that didn't work the first time, what to say it's gonna work the second time?
Yeah.
But at least, from my experience, at least for whatever breakup or whatever girl you meet, the list of things you don't want gets longer, and you just keep updating your filters, and there's so many people out there, so finding someone new and better is never going to be a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's exactly right. And that sounds like an incredibly daunting task to somebody, especially if they're in the throes of a breakup right now and they're having a really hard time. Then it's hard for them to imagine saying like, okay, well now I've learned some things that I do like and I've learned some things that I don't like. And that second list is actually far more important. But that's why I use the jobs analogy, because for every job that you work and then you finish it or you quit or whatever it is, now you have a new set of questions to ask the next time you do an interview, right? Because the first time that you interviewed for a job or the first girl you dated, you were like, right, well, I want to do this and you want to do this. So sure, I don't have any questions, right? But then after 10 or so different jobs, then now you come in and you're like, okay, what are the expectations for this? What are the overtime hours? What are the average pay rates for overtime? How often will we have to do these things? Will you ever have us work weekends? If so, why? How much notice will we be given? Right. And like you start coming in with all these different things because now you have updated your filter with every single job that you've done and seen problems or seen issues that you didn't like. Then, okay, well, now you know what to look out for in the future. And the same is true for girls, because even though in your mind right now, you feel like, oh, she was such a great girl, why did I let her go? Okay, there were some problems there. Even if you don't see them now, there were problems there. And it's possible that the problems were on your end or her end. But either way, you learn from it and you learn how to either one, improve yourself for the problems that were on your end, or two, what to look out for and not accept in future relationships on problems on her end. So that experience of the breakup is actually very illuminating and helpful in helping you to find a better woman than her, or at least a better woman than she was at that time. So you do have to push through it. And Paul's exactly right about focusing in on yourself, what it is that you want, what it is that you need. And this is one of the reasons that I think that the foundation document is so important. I have one guy who I'm coaching right now who has taken so far over 2 weeks and has not yet finished his foundation document because he's really meticulously thinking through every single aspect of it. 2 weeks is a bit long, but 2 to 3 hours is maybe pretty normal if you're being very, very analytical and really doing a deep dive on yourself and what it is that you want, what it is that you're looking for, what types of girls you're interested in, what types you're not, things like that. 2 to 3 hours is fine. But the point is still that you need to really dig down deep in yourself and figure out what's going on with you. Because a lot of guys, especially coming off of a breakup, will say, well, the only thing I need right now is just something, anything. I just need to fill this empty space that I've just created. But would you do that with a job? If you quit a job, then would you say, okay, but now while I'm looking for other work in my field, I will also work at McDonald's part-time? No, right? You don't just fill the space with garbage. You want to fill it correctly. So that's what you need to be focusing on. Focusing on yourself, what it is that you want, what it is that you need, what it is that you're looking for, what kinds of things are most important to you, what alignment needs to happen. Is it, for some people, it's they have to have the same religious upbringing. For some people, it's they have to have the same life goals regarding career and children. For some people, they have to want to live in the same place, right? And for some people, those things aren't important and they're willing to negotiate on those, but other things are far more important. Figure out what you're willing to negotiate on and what is an absolute no-go for you. Because if you don't have any no-goes, you don't have any red lines, then you're a garbage guy, aren't you, right? You're just a Play-Doh man able to get molded into whatever it is that she wants today, but she'll never be happy with that. So figure out who the hell you are. Let's go on, the kid. What's up next?
All right, the next one comes from the Discord too, same user. And his question goes, this was advice I got from a chick friend, but she was saying every relationship is an upgrade, meaning every person you get serious with ends up getting better because your standards increase. But she's honestly into things like astrology and manifestation, so I can't help but kind of question her opinion. Lol. What's been your experience, or even just your thoughts on that whole thing?
She basically just reiterated what I said a minute ago, right? As a general rule, don't take advice from chicks, especially not about relationships and dating. Definitely don't listen to girls who are into astrology and their name is fucking Moonchild or some shit like that, right? But on this one point, it seems that she's quite correct. As long as you are paying attention and you are actively involved in your relationship, in figuring out what is going well, what's not, looking at the root causes, at why is this thing happening? If you notice that the same thing keeps happening again and again in relationships, it's probably because you haven't addressed whatever problem you have that's causing that issue, right? Be present in your relationships, pay attention, figure out what areas you need to improve on personally, figure out where you are not willing to negotiate and state that kind of stuff up front, right? Be real about it. Don't be afraid of scaring off girls, because if they don't meet your basic standards for a relationship, why would you want to keep them around? So you need to figure out what's important to you. And with every relationship, yeah, you do learn, you do figure out more things. You do, to some extent, raise your standards. I actually kind of agree with her. What do you think, Paul?
I think you touched upon it during the first question. It's definitely because whenever you go through a relationship and the relationship ends, you kind of have to reflect on yourself and you update your filters, right? Which means the next time around, you will find someone who is, I will do better, because I don't think it's better in that sense. It's just different and more in line with what you want.
Yeah.
So I generally think, even though she sounds a little crazy, she is on the point on this one.
Yeah. I think we have found the one thing that Moonchild got right. I don't know if that's her name, but that's what I'm going to call her. Now the kid, I saw in the Discord that we had somebody who asked my opinion about something that I had written 7 years ago on the blog.
Oh yeah, you. I think you answered it, but I can scroll back and just double check the conversation.
Yeah.
Oh, it was your article where the title is "Do Not Invest in Korean Women," and I think you
Right.
wrote it in 2015.
Yeah, so literally 7 years ago. Could you read us an excerpt from that?
Yeah, sure. I'll pull that up. Actually,
He sent a screenshot on there that had
I'll
like,
read the screenshot
yeah,
then.
that
Okay,
part
cool.
that he was focusing on.
All right, cool. So this is from the blog. The problem with becoming emotionally invested in Korean women is that they will never return that investment to you. You will always be a foreigner, no matter how long you live here, and they will always treat you like a fling. This also goes for foreign women here. If you choose to go down that path, foreign women here too. If you chose to go down that path, okay. 99% of all foreigners that come to Korea will leave at some time to return to their home country, and the Korean girls know that. They natively understand that you are not from here, and you don't belong here, and you never will. And think about it from their perspective. If you meet an exchange student while you were in college and started hooking up, would you treat it like a fun fling or like marriage material? Of course, it would just be a fling. Korean girls have a way of charming the foreign men they meet here with their long hair, tight bodies, and high level of femininity. Occasionally, you'll meet a foreigner who's married a Korean and decide to stay here to make their home. I wouldn't recommend marriage in general, but I would especially not recommend this idea because all the ones I've met, I can only think. Well, that was the screenshot.
I can
But
only think of one who is actually still happy, and believe me when I tell you he's punching way above his weight with his wife. Was
yeah,
I believe how that finished.
yeah,
Okay, so clearly my view on that has changed slightly in the last 7 years. However, the core idea of it is still sound, which is if you don't plan on living here, well, yeah, Coot points out appropriately that changed. Yes, correct. If you don't plan on staying here long term, then understand that any relationship you have with girls here is necessarily not going to be long term. By the same token, if you've been here a fairly short time, girls aren't going to treat a relationship with you, as a general rule, not always, of course, but they aren't going to treat a relationship with you as serious if you've been here for 6 months. Even if you're here for 6 months and you say, yeah, I love Korea, this is the greatest place on earth, I'm never going to leave. Okay, we'll see. So now at this point, I've been here for nearly 13 years. In about like a month and a half, we will have hit 13 years here in Korea. At this point, I feel like they can believe me whenever I say, not going anywhere. We can have a serious relationship. So will I always be a foreigner? Yes, of course. Do I still get people who come up to me on the street all the time and say, oh, welcome to Korea. Oh, can you use chopsticks? Wow, that's amazing. Can you eat kimchi? Oh, but it's too spicy for foreigners. Like, okay, dude, I don't know what to tell you, man. Yeah, that's always going to exist. And the fact is that my wife is always going to, on some level, treat me like a foreigner. I mean, she has to go through the process of like filing all of our taxes and stuff. She has to file the taxes for this business because my Korean's good. It's not file your taxes level good. That's fucking hard. No matter what, I have a hard time doing that shit in English. And so, yeah, there are some aspects where I will always be a foreigner. And there are some aspects where she's always going to treat me as a foreigner. And her family will too. That's fine, but you have to accept it. You have to know that that's part of it. You also have to know that with most relationships, and this is especially for younger guys, right? You're a young dude, you come over to Korea, it's real easy for you to get Twitter-pated. You get obsessed with this girl or that girl, and you say, oh, this is the one. We're in it to win it. We're going to go. It's you and me against the world, babe, and some shit like that. But then 3 months later, you're like, wait a minute. we have like nothing in common. What the hell is this, right? This is basically advice for young dudes coming to Korea or anywhere really outside their home country, because they're gonna fall into this trap and they're gonna think, well, but I just treat her like a person, and why does she treat me like a foreigner? Well, you are, right? Korea is 99% Korean. You're always going to be a foreigner. That other 1% is largely Chinese and Japanese that were born in Korea. So you do stick out like a sore thumb everywhere except Itaewon. You're always going to be treated a little bit differently. Sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. Most times actually for the better. But you meet a girl in a nightclub, you meet her at a bar, you guys hook up, you just keep on banging, you start dating. She's not going to take it that seriously, not deep down. And she's not going to invest that heavily in your relationship until you prove otherwise. The burden of proof always rests on you when you are the odd man out. What do you think, Paul? Paul has a completely different experience from me. And so I'd really love to hear your perspective on this.
Oh, yeah, because I've had, for the past 2 Korean actual girlfriends I had, both of them were very committed to do it even, or like the long-term thing, even if I weren't staying permanently.
Right. But
they
were also both comfortable with the idea of leaving the country, right?
Yes.
Which is quite rare.
Definitely. It comes down to personal pacing. If you are on the same wavelengths, it can still work like longer term. Like, for example, my current girlfriend, she quit her job, and then we've been traveling and living in Norway for the past 3 months, right? And she was like, yeah, she wanted to go to Germany, and sure, we can go to Germany. I don't care. Like, where I'm located isn't that important to me. But what happened is she got a job in Oslo, right?
Yeah.
Because we are very much on the same wavelength when it comes to personal things. Like, her only condition was kind of don't want to raise kids in Korea. I was like, that's her core thing. And I was, that wasn't the plan anyway.
Right.
But I think, so in the other sense where you say, okay, you've been there for almost 13 years, and now for the most case, people at least accept you're staying here permanently, right?
Yeah.
Then you come to the other side of it. I've been in Korea for about a total of almost 2 years. And I will say girls still are, the main question always becomes, okay, how long are you staying? When are you leaving? So it's definitely something that you will experience.
Yeah.
And I will say most of the girls that goes for foreigners, especially when they're younger girls. So I think if you go for girls that are, I would say probably less than 28, 29, they will always just treat you as a fling because you're just a foreign exotic thing. But once they get a little older, then they might be more open to working things out longer term, because then you get into more of your, like, they have more social pressure on getting married and settle down, and then they widen their their perspective a little bit, and it's easier to get them into your pace.
Sure. So actually, I think that this is a really important point. You never had any designs on staying permanently in Korea, right?
Oh.
Whereas I did. And so for me, even when I'd been here for 4 years, 5 years, 6 years or so, and I would start chatting with a girl and they would say, when are you going home? And I'd respond, I am home. Don't know what you're talking about. This is where I live, right? This is where I live. And that, to them, I assume, always felt kind of like a line, right? Or some kind of trick, something like that. Because the biggest fear for Korean girls, the ones who want to stay in Korea, is that they'll get into a long-term relationship with a foreigner who says he wants to stay in Korea forever and then decides not to, right? Says, okay, you're coming with me. Let's move back to America or to Norway or to Canada or wherever it is. And so if you walk in with already in your mind, you say, yeah, I'm going to be here for another 5 months, 6 months, something like that. Then they say, okay, cool. I can understand that. Now we know all the cards are on the table. But even if I'm being completely honest, whenever I say, yeah, I plan on staying in Korea forever, they're still going to be suspicious of that, right? And once you pass the 10-year mark, then it's like, oh, yeah, oh, okay. Wait, you've been here 10 years. You've had your own TV show here. You've done all your work here. You've released your music videos here and all this stuff. Oh, I guess you probably actually do plan on living here forever. Okay, fine. Different gig there. But yeah, especially for younger guys with no definite plans on when they're going to leave, or they claim that they're staying forever, but they've only been here a relatively short time, a couple of years or so, then it's always going to sound suspicious as hell, even if it's true. So that's probably the mindset from which that article was written. It's also worth noting that this was one of the earlier articles that I ever wrote for the blog, where I would just have an idea pop into my head and I'd sit down and bang out like a little one-page article, if you can even call it that, just kind of a rant about some topic. And yeah, obviously you can see the the evolution of the blog as the posts have become much longer, much more thought out, much better edited, right? But the core idea of that article still stands for that type of guy. Let's go ahead and move on to another one. The Kid, what have you got for us?
All right. So let's see. Let's go through this one.
Real quick, I want to. Coot says crazed lovers treat everyone as long-term relationships. That is true, but you should not. If you find yourself in a relationship with a crazed lover, right? The way that I've always described that is you need to limit it to 3 months maximum. That's your maximum before you need to say either, okay, this was fun, but goodbye. Or you say, all right, I see your brand of crazy. I'll accept it. Let's do this long term. But there's no gray area there with the crazed lovers. You have 3 months to decide. After that, it gets dangerous and you end up getting stabbed. Sorry, the Kid, go on.
All right. So you're running through an example during the lesson of doing pacing and leading in a bar scenario where you approach a group of girls and then you isolate the one you're interested in. Now, how would you apply that to, pacing and leading to a street approach of, let's say, it's just you approaching a group of 2 to 3 girls?
Okay. So a couple of things. First of all, are they walking? Are they standing still? Are they sitting at a table drinking coffee outside? Where are they? What's going on? Right? You need to be aware of the situation, of the surroundings. Because again, if a girl is walking past and it looks like she's in a hurry and you try to stop her, okay, you're missing the entire pace, right? And she's not going to want anything to do with you. Now, if she's just kind of like casually sauntering, okay, cool. You can come up with some kind of like a little bit of a lower energy approach and open her up that way. If she's sitting there and chatting with her friends about something, they're having a coffee together, you can come up and chat with them a little bit. Again, keeping it very low key, as long as they seem fairly low key. Now, if they're really up and they're going on about it, then you can come in with a little bit higher energy. So pay attention to the energy, what it is that they're doing, what kind of activities they're engaged in. Try to meet them on about the same level. And, you can open with anything as long as you're matching match energy, match speed. Whatever it is that they're doing, you want to match these two first. These two you get into once you actually start talking. But the first two are crucial to pacing for the approach itself. You have any thoughts
Okay.
on that, Paul?
Well, not necessarily in that way, but so you've had me do this, right? You've had me walk up to a group of girls in the middle of the street while they're walking.
Yeah.
And then you need some way of like kind of breaking into it.
Yeah.
And for me, after a while, that's all okay, the high five. Like, hey, cool girl, right?
Yeah.
Because then you kind of also break their pace at the same time. Because then they're like, oh shit. And then you need to follow up instantly, right?
Yeah.
Because then you need to like use that tiny break in their own pace to kind of get on the same level as a group. And I would say in those cases, the most important is matching the pace of whoever is the main bitch.
Yeah. Yes.
Because if not, you are alone again on the streets in 20 seconds.
Yeah. You don't think you get 20 seconds with them if you fail. That's not that is very generous. So actually, to exactly that point, this is a great example. I was coaching someone, I don't remember who. It might have been you, Paul, might have been Will, or one of the other guys or something. But we saw a group of 3 girls walking. And whoever I was coaching said, okay, there's no way that you can approach them and get a number out of the deal. And I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm going to approach them. I'm going to get all 3 of them to stop, talk to me, and then I'm going to take all 3 of their numbers. Watch this shit. And so I walked up and I got in front of them, facing them, but they're walking. And so I started walking backwards and talking to them. And what I said is, hey, earlier today, a friend told me a Korean joke, and I want to see if it's funny. And then I told them the joke as I was walking back. And so now I'm pacing them, like physically, the speed, the energy, I'm pacing them. I'm talking at the same volume that they were talking at before, but I'm commanding the attention. We're walking together. And then whenever I hit the punchline, I stop. And literally, like physically, as I'm walking and I'm explaining the joke, and then I stop and give the punchline, all 3 of them start cracking up laughing. Because most importantly, the head bitch in the middle started cracking up laughing. The other 2 got there. Okay, yes, we're allowed to laugh at this guy. It's funny. And then I said, okay, now listen, it's like 4:30 right now. 6:30 tonight, we're having a birthday party for my friend at this bar down the way. I'm going to send all 3 of you the location so that you're all able to come and enjoy. And you can even, when you get there, tell my joke again, and everybody will think that you're funny instead. Got all 3 of their numbers. None of them showed up at the bar. But point is the pacing and then the lead of stopping. Because when I stopped to give the punchline, they didn't keep walking. They all stopped. That's the physical pacing and leading is what I did there. So match the energy, match the speed. Okay. And then I brought them into where I was with mindset and with my social dynamic of let's have a party, because you girls aren't out here to have a boring ass Saturday night, are you? That's exactly a perfect example of that strategy being used on the street. And with that, I'm going to get another beer. The kid, how about you read us another question while I'm grabbing a refill?
Okay. So now, when it comes to now pacing and leading, all the examples we've done have been either kind of in the nighttime scenario or kind of like on the street. How does pacing and leading translate over to text/online dating, or does it just like directly translate over, or is there any specific things you need to adjust for those scenarios?
2 to 3 rule is a good starting point for younger guys, for inexperienced guys. 2 to 3 meaning you should send about 2 messages for every 3 that she sends, roughly, like on average. That's a good way of pacing. And then the times that you do break it, the times that you either send a lot or you send very little, then it seems abnormal. It seems like something is either very important, or if you don't send anything at all, you don't reply to something at all, it seems like you are annoyed or it's unimportant to you or something like that. So you use the pacing to follow along the tempo of texting back and forth, to then when you lead it to a different direction, either more or less, it actually stands out. As far as what you're saying, this is one of the rare situations where you should be leading from the get-go. Forget pacing whenever it comes to the actual tone of the conversation, especially through messages, because you need to, from the get-go, say, I mean, not say, but show, I'm not your friend. We're not going to send 50, 60 messages a day. We're not going to, talk about breakfast or chit chat about bullshit. We're going to set up the date, and then that's it. We're going to use messages for communication purposes, for logistic purposes, but that's it. I don't want to fucking chit chat. I don't want to get to know you through some digital avatar. I want to meet you in person, and that's all. So as far as the tone of the messaging, don't pace, only lead. But tempo, pace. What do you think, Paul?
Definitely leading is harder on text messages in general.
Yeah.
Which means you have to be quite straight to the point. I did a lot of online dating when I was in Korea last, right? So my policy was always, okay, we match, she opens with the first message. I have three tries to get her out on a date, which means I reply with some silly gif in the first one. Then she might ask a question, or you follow up straight with a question. And then I have this one message that I literally just copy paste to everyone, which is honest, right? Like, so what I used to text them was, so I'm a firm believer that chemistry can only be made in person. So how about you give me your Kakao Talk and then we meet up on day X within 72 hours, of course.
Yeah.
And
72-hour rule, very important.
Yeah, and then also get her off the platform, right? And then when doing that, I would agree, okay. And then the only messages I would send her on Kakao Talk is just the logistics of it. Where are we meeting and when are we meeting?
Right. Yeah.
And then that rule I would follow until at least the first 2, 3, maybe 4 dates. Because then you're getting more, like, it becomes a more dynamic flow of it. The second you get past the first couple dates, it doesn't become like, then you don't no longer have to be that, okay, texting is for setting up dates. At that point, you can take in more and follow, like, do more pacing towards what mood she is in, whatever. But for the first couple dates, definitely just the only goal of texting is getting her out on the next date. And you should assume that if she's reaching out, it is because she wants to go on another date.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of it, right?
Yeah, this is a thing that a lot of guys don't understand, is they think because girls text a lot, which they do, that they're good at texting, and they're not. They're really, really bad at it. And you have to take the lead from the very get-go, especially about what are we texting about. And if you open up with some stupid bullshit, how's your day going? Oh, what did you have for lunch? Oh, who gives a shit, man? Right? Then she's going to get the feeling like, oh, this guy doesn't want to date. He just wants to chat. He just wants to talk. Okay, we can just talk. Don't do that, because you're setting a precedent that you're then later going to have to break if you want to get her out on a date. So you have to open up by leading through text. Pacing and leading is is very effective. So speed and energy and enthusiasm are very useful for opening a conversation with somebody, to pace them there and then to lead them into this can be more than just a chat. Mindset and personal and social issues are more useful once you're already in a conversation and you need to change their mind about something. But this is just a tool of persuasion. It's not something that you have to use all the time. And especially in texting, this is not the tool to go to. Instead, you should go to a more strongman approach of here's what we're doing, here's when we're doing it, here's where we're doing it. Get ready, wear this. Come prepared to get wet, or whatever it is that you need to let them know. You're just communicating information, and that's all.
Makes sense.
Okay, we have time for, let's grab one more real quick.
I didn't have any more written down, but I do have one question I guess I asked about something you said earlier.
Sure.
So when you ran through the example of kind of like the pacing and leading on a street approach of a group of 2 to 3 girls, right?
Yeah.
Your example ran through the scenario where you kind of paced and led and you got all 3 numbers, right?
Right.
How would you play out the scenario? Let's say you see a group of 3 and you want one specific number. How do you play out that scenario?
Is she the leader of the group?
Let's go with yes in this scenario, but
Okay.
maybe not.
I mean, because that makes it a lot easier. That makes it a
If
lot
she's the
easier.
leader, she's the first number you get anyway.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That makes it a lot easier. If she's the leader of the group, you do exactly what I described, but then you just stop, right? After you get her number, say, all right, it's clear to me that you're the one who decides when and where everything's happening. So if you want to make sure that you and your friends have the best time tonight, here's what you're going to do. You're going to put your number in my phone. I'm going to send you the location, and you're going to meet me there at 6:30, and we are going to get crunk, as the kids say, or whatever. You can do whatever you want with that. But the point is, you just stop with her. Now, if she's not the leader of the group, but you want her number instead, then you have a couple of different ways that you can go about that. And if you want to be cheeky about it, so the safest way is to say, I'm going to send all 3 of you the location, or you can even ask a question. Say like, now, before the actual party starts happening tonight, are you girls planning on staying together the whole time, or are you going to go home and like change a little bit to get ready for the evening out? You're probably going to change. All right. Well, just so that everybody has the location, we all know where to meet, I'm going to go ahead and send the location to all 3 of you. Or you can get cheeky with it, and you can turn to the girl who's clearly not the leader and do the same speech that I said for the leader. Say, it's clear to me that you are the leader of this group, and you decide when and where the fun happens. So if you want to make sure that you and your friends have the best time tonight, go ahead and drop your number in here, and I'm going to send you the location. We're going to make sure that everybody has the best evening tonight. Now, what's going to happen in that situation, most likely, not guaranteed, but most likely, is she might give you the number, and then they will not come to the party because head bitch in charge is going to be pissed, right? That's fine, because now you have the number that you actually wanted. And so you can message her and say, hey, we missed you at the party, but I would love to hang out with you. Let's do Tuesday. You mentioned you like Italian food. I know this great place. But right, like you have the contact you wanted. So there are different ways to go about it. And one of the hardest things about this is that you're always kind of taking a gamble, but you're just, the more you learn, the more the odds are in your favor, because you learn how to play the current situation against what it is that you actually want. You present that you want them to come to the party tonight, but that's not what you want. What you really wanted was that girl's number so you could take her out on Tuesday. Might not happen, but that's maybe your best shot at it. Make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is that going for, as you say, you can do the gamble and just ask that girl, like ignore the main leader of the group and
Yeah.
then go for the girl you want. What can happen in that situation is that she looks up to the boss,
Yeah, and then boss
and then
comes down.
and then you're toast.
That's a good point. Another way that you could go about this is to literally show deference to the head bitch and say, now listen, I get that you run the clan here, right? You're in charge. I get that. But here's the thing. I'm actually really interested in your friend over here. You mind if I take her number? And you could go that way as well, because the boss likes to be shown that deference, and she is much more likely to say yes to you if you actually approach her directly and say, do you mind if I take her number? She'll answer for the girl that you like. So lots of different ways to go with it, depending on your style, what you think that you'll be able to push and get away with. So the version I gave of ignoring the head bitch is very much the like, I have such swinging balls that I know I'm going to get this number anyway. I know you guys aren't going to come to the party, right? I know my end result that I want, and I know how I'm going to get there. I know what I'm sacrificing to get there, but that's the game I'm playing here. You can do that, but you have to have a really strong frame and a high degree of confidence to do it. Going to the head bitch is a bit of a safer bet. Depends. It depends on how you feel comfortable playing it. It's definitely a safer way to go, and in general, that's going to offer you the path of least resistance to the thing you want. Or just get the head bitch's number and try to convince them to come to the party. Because if they come to the party, it's easy enough to get that girl's number, right? Mm-hmm. So that's another avenue of approach. There's so many different ways to get to the thing you're trying to get to that there's no one answer, but trial and error, experimentation based on your personality, your presentation, and how it is that you come across.
Oh, and I also learned this. I learned later, but this is a neat little trick to like gauge her interest in you.
Yeah.
Because if you get the number, so you have two options, right? You can, like, okay, let's just agree, like you either send her a text or just call her so she gets your number. That's the one way, right? And then you see if the number is true or not. The other trick, which, then in all cases, she can still give you the right number, but she's not that interested really.
Yeah.
Because it's easy enough to block the number, right?
Sure.
The other way around to do it is you read the number back to her, and then you change one number. Mm-hmm. Because if she corrects you, that usually indicates a very clear interest in you.
Okay.
Because then she is trying to make sure you have the right number.
That's interesting. My initial pushback thought on that would be Koreans give away their number for fucking everything, right? Like they go to Dunkin' Donuts and then they're like, oh, but give us your phone number and you'll get points. And they don't even bother asking, like, what do I get for points? Oh, nothing? Oh, okay. But still, here's my number anyway, right? Like, it doesn't matter. You just say, oh, what's your number? Oh, it's this one, right? So I would.
But then it might make her correct you.
I'm not saying you're wrong. It's just the way that my brain works is whenever I hear something, the first thing I think is, how could that not be true? Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so I'm not disagreeing with you, but my first idea of pushback. So what I like to do is I like to do the pop quiz for my name. Mm-hmm. And that one usually works pretty well because quick example, I walk up to a girl, we start chatting. Very first thing, hi, I'm Jack. What's your name? Okay. Oh, my name is Minji. Okay. All right. Hi, Minji. It's nice to talk to you. And we start chatting for like 3 or 4 minutes, something like that. Oh, I have to go meet my friends, but I want to hang out with you again later. go ahead and put your number in my phone here, open it up. The dialer screen's already open. I've talked about this before, but then she types her number in. I check, okay, and this is how you spell your name, like this. Oh, yeah, that's exactly right. Wow, fantastic. And then I say, okay, now I'm going to call you so you have my, wait, before I bless you with my number, we need to have a pop quiz. What's my name? One of two things happens here. Either one, they say, your name's Jack. And I say, oh, that's exactly right. So that shows they're interested. They're invested. They want to talk to me more because they paid attention and they've committed it to memory. Or two, they say, actually, I'm embarrassed to admit this, but I don't remember what you said your name was. Okay, I'll give you a hint. It's like your favorite whiskey. And they're like, oh, Jack Daniels? I'm like, Jack, right? It's Jack. So I'm just like Jack Daniels, but I taste better. I promise. And they're like, oh, okay, right. All right, well, now they feel embarrassed because they fucked up already. And so they feel a little bit of a sense of they owe me something. They owe me because they've messed up. They've made a mistake so early in our interaction. And so for me, that usually worked really well because it either showed interest or created the need for reciprocation of some kind. So,
that makes sense.
Have we exhausted your list of questions, the kid?
Yeah, you guys have covered everything.
Awesome. Well, then, in that case, this is where we're going to go ahead and wrap it for the day. For those of you who have joined us live, thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. And for those of you watching this on replay, well, I hope that you've enjoyed it. I hope that you've learned something. And just to make sure that we all enjoy the rest of our day together, let's have one last drink together. One last cheers for chaps. Lift your glasses and cheers, boys. Go. It does taste better when you drink it together. And with that, we're going to go ahead and end it. So, until next time, Papa Jack out.